Well, welcome everyone. My name is Mike Walsh, and I'm CSBA Director of County Services. And today it's time for part two of our five-part webinar series on the County Board Governance Handbook, which I just happen to have a copy here with me right now, naturally. So I am excited today because we're going to have a conversation with our county board members, and they're county board members that were either a part of the development of the handbook or they've participated in different conversations and trainings and utilized the handbook in some cases. So I'm excited about our conversations today. I'll have our guests introduce themselves shortly. But before we do that, the usual housekeeping. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the housekeeping. Please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions. Yes, we're excited to have your questions. And we will do everything we can to make time to answer every one of them. We have producer Che in the background also working with us to make sure we keep track of whatever your questions are. Now, this is located, as you see, on the ribbon below the speaker. The chat feature has been turned off. We won't be chatting with you, but we do want to see your questions. Your questions will be answered either in the Q&A feature, we'll have someone typing in some responses to you, or live by one of us. Also, all attendees will receive a link to this video recording as well, and those who signed up and aren't able to make it for whatever reason, or if you have to leave early, Uber, Dash, or whatever food is arriving, you got to go deal it. Go ahead. We've got the recording for you. We'll get that to you as well. Now, enough of housekeeping. Let us go ahead and get some folks in the room now who I would love to have them introduce themselves. I don't do this all by myself. That would be a boring conversation. I've invited some fantastic folks to be here, and their conversations are what's going to be exciting for all of us. So as you can see, we got our panelists right here on the list, and I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to stop talking for a hot second. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. They're trained professionals, and they get to tell you a little bit about who they are and how long they've served, and then we're going to dive on into that conversation. So Jessica, you want to go ahead and kick this off? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yes, I'm Jessica Spicer. I'm on the Santa Clara County Board of Education. I just joined in December 2024. Prior to that, I'd been on a local district for 8 years, Los Altos School District. I'm also a delegate for Region 20.
Nice. So I'm glad you're here. You've got some experience that's going to be valuable to everybody, especially with that notion of having served on the district and now serving on a county board. Fantastic. You know what? I'm going to stick with the theme. And I know the order, I've just changed it. Sorry about that, Alistair. But I'd like Gwendolyn to go next because there's a little bit of the similarity. That's easy for you to say. Similarity between your story and Jessica. So let's go ahead and have you go next. Oh, you're muted, by the way.
There we go. We're back in COVID again, right? You're muted. I'm off mute now. But good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Gwen Dowdy Rogers, and I am serving in the San Bernardino County. And excitingly, I was on a board. I was on San Bernardino City Unified School District Board of Education for 8 years. And now I have been on the County Board of Education since 2022.
Nice. Again, I told you, Alistair, there was some similarity there. That's why I had to go with that. Otherwise, I'd be confused. So at this point, so Alistair, do me a favor. Could you please introduce yourself and tell everybody where you are from?
Hello, Alistair Rounson from Butte County Office of Education. I'm a board trustee up here for the second time. As my original term was an appointment in 2019 to 2020, so it was an interesting time for our somewhat rural Northern California community post spillway event, post campfire, numerous other wildfires had impacted our area, and it was during the COVID pandemic era, which had some very interesting implications for all of us. In my professional capacity, I worked for the California Community College System, in particular in economic and workforce development.
Perfect. And so, Alistair, it's great to have you on board. And Butte County, I'm not familiar with Butte County, but we'll figure that one out later on. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
A few clicks north of Sacramento, and as I used to explain to my university roommates down in Santa Barbara, I'm not in Oregon.
I understand. All right. And joining us not last, excuse me, or something like that. Yeah, I guess he was joining us last, but we're excited to have him here. Is the Director at Large County, Dr. Ramon Flores, who's joining us from a secret location, apparently, as technology is becoming a little more difficult. And so, Dr. Ramon Flores, welcome.
Hey, Michael. Hi, everybody. And I hate to say this, but as a practicing engineer, I'm struggling with technology today. We are not simpaticos, as they say. The camera is just not being kind to me. So I have this beautiful mugshot that I've got over here. So Ramon Flores, trustee, Ventura County Board of Education, 18 years on the board, go back to 2008, very long time of serving. And as you mentioned, Michael recently voted in as delegate at Large County. Sitting on the board of directors for CSBA, actually my second go around back in 2013 when I was president of what was then the California County Board of Education. The deal was that the president of CCBE actually had a seat on the board of directors, a one-year term. And of course, just as soon as I started to figure stuff out, my term ended. But this time, second bite of the apple, and I get 2 years to try to figure it out. So thank you for having me here.
I got to tell you, I completely understand, appreciate what you mean by that first year. My first year on the board in 2011, I felt a little bit sometimes like a duck in the desert. Wasn't quite sure how I got there or what I was doing, but I was swimming fast in the sand. So welcome, everybody. So glad to have all of you here. Now, the premise is very simple for me. Today, I want to invite everybody to participate and just to kind of eavesdrop on a conversation. And the conversation is really this notion of shared, or excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the next series. But what are some of the things that you've learned or that you've understood from board development and the handbook and conversations? Now, I always say about a conversation that all conflict exists in the absence of a good conversation. And today, I'm hoping that we get to have a great conversation. Or as Susan Scott likes to say in her book, Fierce Conversations, she says that the gold you are mining for is the core, unvarnished truth of a situation. And you can't find gold without doing a little bit of digging. And so we're going to do a little bit of digging, but hopefully the digging isn't painful, right? Because none of it should be. The goal is simply just to have a conversation. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that conversation. And the first person I want to bring back up on the screen is Jessica. Jessica, you know, you've talked a little bit about having served on a board prior district and now the county for a little bit of time here. So I would love to start with one. I know you were part of the group that helped us develop the content for the book, as well as I know you've actually read the entire thing. Matter of fact, you were the first person to reach out to me. It had barely hit the press. I don't know how you got an advance copy, but I thought you had read it within 5 minutes of us having released it to the public. So you're welcome to give a quick, your opinion, your critique of the handbook. But I'd love for you to also kind of talk a little bit about what have you noticed about the distinctions with the handbook has helped you really highlight between district and county. And Gwen, you're welcome to jump in on this conversation as well. But Jessica, let's start with you.
All right. Yes. Thank you. I'm kind of a Hermione Granger of being a school board member. So yes, I read it pretty quickly because I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. I started campaigning for my role 2 years prior to getting my role. And part of it was actually learning what the role was. So there were plenty of things that I had actually already kind of learned. But at the same time, it made sure it cemented that. It's things I learned more anecdotally. It was good to have it on paper and in one location. One of the things there's many distinctions between county board of education and local school districts. And one of the big things is most normal citizens or even local trustees literally have no idea what we do, have no idea. And they also think that our that we can control local districts. And even local trustees think that, as do our normal citizens think that. And no matter how much I tell them when they're emailing me to do something about the local district, I have to tell them, no, that's not within our purview, but, contact them. And then, there's in our case in Santa Clara County, we actually appoint, we have one employee, and it is our superintendent. Not every county, and in fact, most counties, I believe 55 counties are elected, and the rest are appointed. And
Yep.
And as it relates to, we have the interim, we don't approve of interim budgets, but we get to see them before they're sent to the state. And then we also, our county does evaluate its superintendent, where the rest of the other 55 counties don't. And those are things I learned on the job and through the handbook.
Perfect. So, Gwen, again, this is why I said, we're going to move Alistair out of the picture for a while, because the story between you and Jessica is so similar, except for this one little thing that she's already highlighted, and that's that notion of appointing. So talk a little bit about your connection with all these conversation and what it was like, the differences, et cetera. I'll stop talking now.
So I will say, what I am happy about is the book. Being that I've served on a district board and in a county board for our own good, it is so great to have that guideline, because unlike, and as Jessica said, not only the public's perception or non-understanding of it, becoming a board member, if you've never been on the other side, you have this notion of we are school board and we're related to that term. And that means, okay, then we obviously have a jurisdiction over the superintendent, engaging with the staff and negotiation and seeing parents and all those things in the district. And it's completely different. As she said, we are one of the ones that have an elected superintendent. So that means that wonderful term, I don't know if you coined it, Mike, or who, but that shared governance, I love to say that, because recently I just did a presentation for in one of our cities where they asked me to come and do a school board member 101, right? And it gave me the opportunity to really dig deep into, here is those unique differences. But on our end, and I would say it, what the commonality too, is we both, whether we hire the superintendent or not, we should be working along with them because it's shared governance, right? And so in our case, even though we don't have the authority to go out and fire and do all of these things that some people think that we should be doing, we still work along, bring information, engage, talk about what is best for students. And it's always going back to what is best for students. But yes, we are unique in that we don't hire our superintendent, but we certainly work along with our superintendent and all of the superintendents. I love it. As a county board member, I get to see the superintendents that I serve in my respective area, as well as all the superintendents. And to me, the conversation is all about whatever I hear or can share to support those districts. That's what I do.
I love this conversation already, because I agree with you that it almost seems like when you think about the great mysteries of the world, there's county boards and the Bermuda Triangle, and no one has solved either one of them. We don't understand it, right? But we still make up an answer. And so that's been my experience. Again, I got elected back in 2010, and everything that both of you have shared so far, it still resonates to this day, that I'm learning constantly. I can neither confirm nor deny. I may have learned some things while I was in the process of organizing the handbook. So go figure that part of it out. And I love this notion of shared governance. So I want to stand on that for a little bit. When you think about shared governance and the relationship between trustee and superintendent, for both of you, and gentlemen, you're also welcome to weigh in on this question. What do you see as the importance of that shared governance? Why is that such a critical thing? Because, and I'll do a little shameless plug for our next session on April 8th. we're going to have county superintendents and someone also from the from the California Superintendents Association will be joining us as well to talk specifically about shared governance. But first, board members. So tell Jessica, Gwen, whoever would like to go first, talk a little bit about why you feel that's such an important concept.
I mean,
Well, I just wanted to say real quick, because this is where I ended. It's the students. So we're still there. We have to have that conversations. Too often people think that all we're supposed to be talking about is about the adult problems. It's not. We still are there, and we're serving the most vulnerable populations, and I'm sure Jessica will agree. Look, they often don't know our conversation is surrounding students in juvenile hall, students in community day, vulnerable populations. So that's the huge part, is to continuously, we're still talking about kids over here. We're still talking about their success.
Yeah,
Jessica.
yeah, and really at the end of the day, we will not get anything done unless we're doing it together. Like the only thing I would do differently in that in the handbook is literally just have the word collaboration in every page of the book. It's in close to every page, but it's not in every page. But like, we will not get anything done for our students, and we serve the most underserved students in the county if we're not getting along. And we have such different power silos in local school districts, such that it is really our best move to be collaborative. I'm not a person to get tattoos, but I almost want to tattoo that on me, collaboration.
On the forehead, Jessica, on the forehead.
Right?
Dr. Flores, jump in here, please.
Thanks, Michael. Ladies, great points along. And I want to be very literal about this because I think it's really lost in the communications that I had, conversations I've had. A local board, and again, my daughter is a board of trustees on the largest, school district here in Ventura County. A local board can hire and fire their superintendent. And so that's their one employee. And Jessica, you brought up a good point about the appointed ones. As a county board, the Board of Education is an elected body. The superintendent, in those cases where they're elected, is an elected body. These are two separate elected bodies. So this notion of shared governance, it seems so simple, but when you look at it from the perspective of two separate governing bodies coming together for the betterment of student outcomes, that's where it's key. And that notion, while subtle, is super important. I've been blessed my nearly 20 years on the board. We've had tremendous relationships with the two superintendents that we've had, but it could very easily go into a scenario where a superintendent has certain priorities that maybe are not the board's priorities. And if we don't have the shared governance, we're not going to get anything done. Dr. Rogers, to your point about student achievement, what's best for the students. So it's subtle, but it's also very critical to understand these are two separate governing bodies that come together for the benefit of the student population that we serve. And it is very vulnerable. It took me a while to realize this notion of trustees. We are actually the governing board for our court schools and our community schools. And that's it. We just happen to have a school district called Ventura Unified. So I think, Jessica, to your point, there's been many times where I've gotten emails because people confuse Ventura Unified School District with Ventura County Office of Ed. And I'll get emails, you need to fix those guys over at Ventura Unified. And I remind them, I'm a county board, not a local board, but thank you for inquiring. We don't have any impact over them. Over to you, Mike.
So I love this. The conversation again is around collaboration. I've already made note, Jessica, watermark collaboration over every paragraph in the next edition. Got it. It'll be taken care of. Communications is listening, producer Che. And so I love all those notions and this concept of why the shared governance is so important. I'll have to tell folks that, listen, if it's not the program that you're running because it's the county superintendent's program, you should still be an ambassador of that program because it's still good work. So Alistair, let me bring you in here for a little bit. You have now, and here's why I want to bring you in. So everyone is talking about the handbook. And I love the conversation we're having, but I want to move this into an actual study session because let's be very honest about this. You and I serve on the same board together. This is the reason why I asked you to volunteer to join me today, and you're already making me pay back the price. Fine, I'm in. But the reason I wanted you here for sure is we've had two study sessions now using the handbook. And you have complete and total permission to be very honest with me right now. What have you thought about those 2 study sessions? And I'm going to have producer Shay bring up the next slide because it talks a little bit about some of the questions, and I'll point to the ones that we talked about specifically. But I'd love to get your take on what was it like to be in those study sessions where the conversation was kind of open-ended.
Yeah, so I definitely welcome the conversation that stemmed from those study sessions, and probably with to a person in the room, the biggest regret was how quickly the clock ran out when there are still topics to digest. And I know it's meant to be an a la carte menu of stimulating conversations, and if it happens that the first topic that the board unpacks requires more attention, then it served its purpose right there, and there's nothing to stop us as a board revisiting some of the questions at a later time. I found it was interesting. One of the early questions in our own workshops was had to do with our understanding of our county office of Ed's mission, and something so simple, something so universal in terms of a concept of a mission statement or a vision. Yet very few people are able, without looking at your cheat sheet, able to rattle off what the mission of your organization is. And everybody's got a slightly different interpretation, and you can almost tell the way that a board member recalls the mission, what their own kind of bias or focal areas are. That's the first thing that comes to mind that comes out. So it was really, that was a great start to it, and very, very appropriate, because it kind of teed up some of the follow-on questions and dialogue around also our own understanding of some of the programs and services. And we're active in multiple counties statewide. So we don't just touch programs in our home county. And even in our home county, there are so many different state, local, nonprofit, private organizations that we collaborate with, that sometimes it gets very challenging to track. So in summary, it prompted some thought-provoking exploration of what we understood about our own programs around the various populations, beyond children, from K through adult, that we supported, and how we supported them, to circle back to how can we listen, how can we be that voice. And in the previous conversation, you touched upon the value of collaborative leadership. One of the other things that I think is most important for a county board member is to provide that voice for some form of accountability and access for the population that you represent.
Perfect. I'm going to have producer Shay go ahead and bring that slide up. So I want to give a little background to what you were just sharing with everybody else. So in our first session, we had set aside a window of time. Oftentimes folks think this is around this huge, large, we got to set 8 hours aside. And one of the things I like to dispel is this notion of team building, which is really what we're talking about. So again, let me do a couple of things. Team building is not an activity. Team building is a conversation. And the conversation focuses on how are we going to be with each other, collaborative, as Jessica and Gwen talked so much about, did a wonderful job on that. So if we're going to be collaborative, then that's a conversation that comes out of the team building, how we decide we're going to be with each other, or the shared governance. And so this conversation that we started with in our board meeting wasn't about the full day. It was just, hey, let's take 30 minutes and talk about how we're going to be while we do the work itself. And the first two questions that we worked on are right here, questions underneath this section 1, County Office of Education Primer, metrics and indicators for understanding, showing that we understand our mission. Now, what was interesting about that conversation for me, and I don't know if you caught on the same thing, Alistair, is that while we were having that conversation, there was a moment where everyone just sort of felt like we were going through the motion and saying yes, and we were checking it off like we were complying with it, until someone pushed back, and I think you were one of the people who pushed back, and you said, "Hey, I'd like to go back to visiting this conversation," and then I asked everyone, "Hey, I think all 7 of us, we have 7-member board, and I think all 7 of us plus our superintendent, I think we all have different versions of what that mission would be," and that was where we started to really dig in on that. So, talk a little bit, please, about how you thought the board handled this conversation when we all realized, "Oops, we do have 7 different understandings of our mission."
Well, fortunately, with candor and honesty, because I think some people were ready to so 30 minutes before the board meeting, and we're ready to push through to make sure that we covered everything, and like you say, thought that this was a rather general or generic opening question, but then once we started to question ourselves on our own understanding of the mission and sort of look and compare to other county office of ed mission statements, similarities, differences, the conversation circled back to why are different aspects important? What makes this most relevant to Butte County, for example? What makes it most relevant to the programs that our county office of ed manages or delivers? And it sort of led into one of the follow-up questions around which of our programs we'd all like to learn a bit about, or which we know most about, and which we feel like we could learn more about or better understand, so that if asked by the public that we represent, we could share an intelligent digest or interpretation, or at least bring that back for appropriate follow-up.
I love that, because I think you just identified something that I think a lot of times boards, when I do show up and to work with them, there's this fear of judgment, that if I get this answer wrong, I'm going to be penalized. And what I'm hearing you say is that the conversation had less to do with judgment and more to do with this notion of what's the shared meaning, and how are we going to collectively look at this. Back to that I'm going to make a note, collaboration everywhere. And so I love that concept. Now, I do have a question for you, that since Jessica and Gwen did such a great job of reminding everybody this is about students, ultimately, you're in the workforce development space. And I know that because we've had conversations in a few other places in our vocational area, lives. Talk to me a little bit, please, if you could. I would love to know how you see the importance of aligning policy, funding, partnerships, these conversations, all of that stuff with real world outcomes. Give me a short version of how do you see all that aligning? Because I want to bring Ramon in after that, because I know he does some of the, he also is involved in workforce development, but he's doing it with kids. And I want to bring him in on this as well. So you get to set the table for Ramon.
Oh, okay. So at a high level, there's an amazing amount of funding, an amazing amount of political groundswell and public endorsement for workforce development. Yet at the end of the day, when you analyze the actual real world outcome, sadly, an underutilization or of the resources that are available at large. And I don't think this is restricted to the state of California. I think this is probably a national symptom. But just thinking about in California, how many grants there are out there, and that people don't know about, or the right people don't know about in time. or don't have the bandwidth to apply for, how many grants that are applied for and won, and then the people don't have the correct resources to execute them. And then as I'm kind of envisioning a filter as you kind of filter down, and then once you finally get your grant approved, you get the resources and the infrastructure in place to deliver on the proposed outcomes of the grant. Then you still have the challenge of connecting those resources, this essentially educational or training product that you produce, with the right people. And without strong collaboration with other community entities, you're never going to find enough of the right people to basically have a successful narrative and a successful outcome for some of those workforce development funds. And these range from grants to like in my ecosystem, I work with the employment training panel, which works from the other end of the scale. It incentivizes employers to invest in upskilling the workforce by reimbursing them for time that they spend in training. So long and the short of it, I'd say collaboration is critical there, so that you connect these wonderful resources with the people most in need of them. But on the other side, you basically make this workforce development at an early age and make it accessible. So the accessibility of especially concise, tactical trainings that fill needs, especially locally or regionally, are so critical. And I was blessed to have toured our own career technical ed open house, and I got to see the vet tech program in action. I walked into the dental assistant ROP program, and I was really amazed. We had a student stand up with complete professionalism, gave me a very, very thoughtful tour of the training, and was able to explain why they're excited about it, how it was going to help them. And that summed it up for me. Is people need to understand, want to do something, and need to understand how it can help them in their own career progression. Sorry.
So no part. I'm gonna ask producer Che again to bring the slide up. That I think I have the correct slide up there. And I want to point something out and then bring you in, Dr. Flores. I think one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is if you'll look at the third bullet point, from juvenile court schools to CTE, the instructional landscape, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that, Alistair, was the question that we were talking about in our second study session that landed on, hey, we do need to do a better job of understanding some of our students. And that was kind of what you were alluding to, because ultimately we want everybody to at some point be gainfully employed, et cetera. So Gwen, I'm going to go in to answer have you share, and then Dr. Flores, we're bringing you in eventually, but Gwen's here.
No, to his point, I just wanted to add, as we're talking about collaboration as well, another important point in everything that he's doing is to remember, as a board member, advocacy is important as well. So everything kind of summed up what he's saying is that I shared with you earlier that I did a presentation before, but that was one of the things that I hit very hard, to let the community know why we should be out, and to let other board members know why we should be out. That is critical. We hear about things, we can advocate for them, not only, on the local level, but of course we know on the state level as we partner with you all. But that advocacy to know what is working or can work for our students, all in those vulnerable populations. So I just wanted to just definitely make a note on that. That is exactly in the shared part with the county. Here, they talk about in their mission is transforming lives through education. And we then, one of the times we did do a workshop when I first came on board, we also took it a step further and developed our mission statement, which says impacting our community through education, accountability, and opportunity. So it jives together, if you will. So that I just wanted to point that out. We're always should be advocating.
Nice. Dr. Flores, jump in, please.
Oh, great comments all along. And Alice, I'm so glad you use the term ecosystem. That's something that I use in my vocabulary on a daily basis. So one of the beauties of being a county board trustee is just that we have a county perspective. So Ventura County, we have 20 school districts, some small, some large, one high school district, some K-8s. So it gives us a great view of the landscape. And then in my day job, I do workforce development for STEM outreach. So science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We have a naval base in the county. It is the largest employer. Currently, we employ over 4,000 engineers. We need that human capital. And the fact that as a county board member, I can look around my counties, like see, oh, there's some great opportunities here for some investment. So one example, briefly, Santa Paula Unified is literally 10th of the 20 districts size-wise, just over 5,500, one high school, one middle school, one STEM elementary school. So Alistair, I'm going to borrow your terms. We wanted to create not a pipeline, but an ecosystem for STEM engagement. I call it kindergarten to employment. So we implemented STEM programming at the STEM elementary school. We implemented STEM programming at the middle school. We have some existing STEM programming for high school students. We had rolled that one high school in, and then I'm using my college and community students as mentors for all these programs, using funding from both the school, the community college district and the four-year university to pay the STEM mentors. I provide the resources, whether it's materials, microprocessors, whatever. And the idea is if you're a student at the elementary school and you're interested in STEM, we will guide you along this path. We will give you STEM mentors that are near peers. And then through our internships and our scholarships, there is a path to full-time employment with the largest employer in the county. And oh, by the way, the four-year university in our county guaranteed admission into the School of Engineering, which is insane since most schools are impacted. But this ecosystem would not happen without support from the superintendents, the local school board, the principals, the teachers, the parents, and of course the students. And being a county board member allowed me to have the purview of saying, okay, of these 20 districts, this is the one that probably makes the most sense. This is the one that we can see the most results, and we're seeing that already. I've got one student who is on the way to the Naval Academy. I've got another student who's on the way to West Point. And when you look at this district being 97% Latino, 80% on the Freedom to Reach Lunch program, like I said, they're in poverty, and we're sending these kids to West Point, to the Naval Academy. And by the way, those are going to come work for us as my interns. It's amazing. But again, Alistair, it's this notion of an ecosystem, and being a county board gives us that purview, that perspective that we can then, in our private sectors, bring in all these resources. I did a quick math count. I think it's close to $300,000 that we've invested in this one district in the last 3 years as a business partner, again, because of this county perspective.
So let me do something real quick, because this is, again, I love the conversation, love the things that you're accomplishing. You're starting to figure out the importance of alignment and shared governance and collaboration. All of this is playing out. I'm going to drive it back to the book now. And so as we start to wind down the conversation, connect this back to the book. What are the areas? I'm going to start with you, Jessica, because again, I know how well you, I tease you a lot about it, but I know you read literally every word. Anytime we met, yeah. Anyway, Jessica's been very quick to tell, and I love it because Jessica tells me the truth, and she's already told me some things when she first gave me her feedback for recommendations for improving the handbook. So this is why I want to start with you. So give me the value of how this handbook, how you see it can lead to all the outcomes that we've been talking about so far, and everybody else, be prepared to chime in. Because it's the same question for all of you. Handbook connected back to all these accomplishments that everybody's talking about: workforce development, student success, etc.
Really, the basic piece is that if we are reading everything in the handbook, it's just good governance. And actually going through, I read it, and then you had questions at the end of each chapter, and I answered them myself. I did my own little version of a study session, but it was just me and the handbook. And at the end of the day, like you read in the handbook, but we really should have known this as being trustees in the first place. You're doing this for the kids. So always remember the kids. But honestly, if you're learning this from the handbook, I feel bad. I feel like you should have known that before. That being said, you go back to that, and it's something to always point to, like we are doing this for the kids, and and the collaboration piece, and as you're talking about, in Butte, you have, and in all of our counties, we have our mission and visions that we live by. Remember to go back to that when making your decisions. And remember that we're in this together. Again, the collaboration for the kids, just every day. Just remember that every time you talk, as it relates to your role as a county board member.
Love that. Gwen.
So it's definitely, back to the book to just say it's the tool that we all should have. I applaud this because I get the question all the time. Well, what do you have to do to be a school board member? People asking you, we know there's those basic, okay, you're 18, you live in the area. But once you swear in, you need a roadmap. You need a roadmap to continue to remind yourself what you're there to do. And through that governance handbook of constantly talking about, as Jessica said, collaboration, it draws us back. It is the book that we can now utilize to create our own workshops. A shout out to you, Mike. Brought you in. I think you're fabulous. I think you're great. You didn't pay me to say that. I watched you over the years because I was new. Now I'm kind of moving into. I think I'm in the 10th grade, maybe. But when you come in new with that willingness, you got to find your way. And at the time, there wasn't a tool. I had a tool in a person by the name of Dr. Margaret Hill, who had done it for years and years, but everybody doesn't have that luxury. And so now having something like this that guides us back, because we're as I share with people, we have, depending on where you were elected, you could have 30 to 40 to 50,000 bosses. That's the community that put you in that position. And I always remind people, we have bosses more than than people think, thousands of bosses. And so I need to make sure that I'm saying and doing what they put me in the job to do. And this handbook, as it becomes a living document or what have you, but the basics are not going to change unless legislation does something later on in life and we'll all be gray then or something. But we have that, and it is a tool, and we should have throughout what our role is, and it should talk about children and working together and advocating.
All right, Alistair, your short version.
Yeah, I like that concept, Gwen, of it being a living document. So along those lines, not everybody has the same background, history, exposure. So the more cliff notes or hyperlinks you can include, or even bold print for the essentials to draw in the eyes. From a user experience, the more beneficial it will be. But right now, it's a very valuable tool.
Thank you, Dr. Flores.
I love the organization of the handbook. Like Alistair said, it's everything's so structured for us. I can go to the section on core and community schools. I can go to the section on appeals, whether it's charters or inter-district transfers. But I want to come back a little bit, this notion of shared governance again. Don't want to beat that dead horse, but hey, it's dead already. I talked about the superintendent and the board, but also within our own trustees. This notion of the 5 of us or 7, depending on what the case is, we need shared governance. We need, and I love the term unity of purpose. It's a reminder of why are we here and how are decisions going to impact student outcome. And real quick, a shameless plug, I got an email this morning from my director of communications. We were actually featured, Ventura County was featured in CSBA's most recent newsletter because even though we have a board that has split ideologies politically, we came together with unity of purpose when this notion of ICE and the raids in Ventura County was happening. And we wrote a letter, I should say, to the Department of Homeland Security saying, hey, schools are safe spaces. Do not do any of this ICE enforcement there. If you're going to be in our neighborhoods, identify yourselves, don't wear masks. And I get it, it's a polarizing issue, but even though we have different ideologies politically, we came together with unity of purpose for the safety of our students. And is the letter going to get any traction? No, it's probably in a RON file somewhere in DHS. But the fact that on an issue like that, the board came together, the superintendent was also supportive. Again, to your point, Dr. Rogers, it's all about the students. How is this decision that we're engaging in going to support student outcome? And again, the handbook does a great job of guiding us through that narrative, guiding us through those conversations to end up with unity of purpose.
So I was just seeing if I could pull up the specific, I'm going to see if I can drop this into the chat. So the publication that you're looking for right now, Ramon, I was going to mention this, so thank you for jumping ahead of me. The Ventura County Board Unites on Immigration Issue, and it's in the CSBA California School News magazine for January 2026. Just went in. It's a great article, and I thought it is exactly what you described. It is this notion of unity of purpose. And really, I talk about unity of purpose. I have to use words about creating a collective understanding, right? The collective understanding that all 5 of us or all 7 of us, plus the superintendent, we're all going to have a conversation, and we're really seeking a collective understanding of what our role is. And so when you talk about the handbook being that roadmap that keeps bringing you back to focus, that's exactly what the design and the hope was, that it would always keep bringing us back to the focus, because as a board member, part of my experience, it can get easy to be distracted. There's a ton of stuff going on. There's always a crisis. Before the pandemic, there were 15 other crises. I don't remember all of them. I remember one of them was reserve. There was teachers were leaving. I pulled a muscle one time. I don't know. There's always all these things that are coming up, and it's easy to be distracted. So I love what you've been describing, how our constituents, who I love this notion of Gwen, as you described them, they're my boss. I call them my neighbor, right? They're my neighbor who said, I'm going to vote for you. Now I'm in charge of you. Get some work done. Make our schools better, right? All of that. And I think that's a part of the job. It's a part of the work that we do. And I love where this conversation has gone. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the day. Give you each of you have 10 seconds to give your final plea, your final recommendation, 10 seconds each. We're going to go in reverse order. I'll let Director at Large, Dr. Ramon Flores, go first. He's got 10 seconds. And then we're going to look at, we've got chats. We have a question in the chat. We're going to look at that. But we're going to take care of, I want to hear it from you. And then we're going to answer that question. And then I'm going to wrap it up. So Dr. Flores, 10 seconds, or what did I say, 10 or 20? You're down to 15. I talked for 5 of yours. So you're down to 15 seconds.
I'm just going to jump all over Jessica's notion of reading this thing cover to cover. If you haven't done it, I would highly encourage. It's a quick read. It's a very nice read. And again, I just love the layout and the structure. The whole point of it, as you said, Mike, is bringing us back to why are we here? That unity of purpose. We're here to support our students. So definitely, I would highly recommend a nice quick read on the handbook.
Perfect. And let's go with reverse order. So Alistair.
Along those lines, it's a wonderful tool. Leverage that tool to help put students first.
Sounds fantastic. That was a lot faster than I was expecting. You have like 3 seconds left. Let's go with Gwen. Dr. Rogers.
So treat it like a Thomas guide. Back in the day, I'm dating myself, but keep it with you. We didn't know where to go. It would be in the car. We didn't have a navigation system talking to us. This is our nav. This is our Thomas guide.
Oh my goodness. You just took me back to when I actually had hair, because that's how long it's been since I had that guide. How did I make it to any place? Okay, here we go. All right, so Jessica, you got to top that. Good luck.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how I can, but and everybody has covered everything. Honestly, yeah, read it cover to cover. Actually, do answer the questions. It's enlightening to yourself. You know, if you're doing it by yourself or do it with your board. But it was a great primer, and a great tool to have with you at all times.
Thank you for all four of you. Now, before I thank you and officially, and we head off into the four winds as they blow us to wherever we got to go. I do want to talk a little bit about this part here. The question that was asked was a perfect question, and I've got to confess, I should have a slide ready for you on this one, and I didn't create that one. My apologies. But if you will go to the question was, how do I get a handbook? Well, you can't have mine because I've already written all over it. It's got all my notes and things. So the new note that I have to put collaboration in every page and on every paragraph, which would be odd, but okay, I'll figure it out. So what I will tell you is that if you go to our website, you can go to the CSBA. I've got extra notes coming in all of a sudden. I'm not sure where that one just came from. But what we can do are two things. One, you go to County Board Member Services on the website. Go to csba.org, go to County Board Member Services. You'll find a hyperlink that actually says right there halfway down the page, it says you can go ahead and download a copy, or you can go ahead and check in with us, and we will actually mail you an autographed copy, a different cost, of course. The download is free. The booklet, we got to charge you. I just don't know how much because I didn't pay attention to having received my invoice yet. I'm sure I'll get an invoice now that I've admitted that I didn't pay. But you'll receive a copy of this in the link, and we're going to put a copy in there for you, as well as when we email you out the link to the recording. Let me try that again. You'll receive a link to the recording for this episode, and in that email, you will also receive a link that takes you directly to the handbook. So that's it. Let me go ahead and producer Che, if you'll go ahead and give me my last slide right there. So we're going to talk about upcoming events. I had somebody tell me you never leave an event without talking about the next event. So ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about our next upcoming events. We have the county MIG training that happens on March 10th. That's unit one. That's the first of 4. So that one will take place in San Diego at the beautiful Sheraton Resort. Right across from the airport, 15-minute shuttles. Every 15 minutes, 20 minutes, another shuttle bring you on over. So come on down and see us for that. Also, the County Governance Workshop, March 11th and 12th. That will be happening the very next 2 days, same location. We've got an amazing lineup set up for you. And the focus is on foster youth and homeless, predominantly foster youth. And then an opportunity, coast to coast federal advocacy. Not too late to come and join us. Especially there's so much confusion about all these conversations and what's happening. Please come on and join us for that. And then finally, on April 8th, the perspectives on shared governance, that will be with, again, I'm going to have a couple of our county superintendents as well as a guest from the County Superintendents Association. It's going to be a lively conversation because it's a chance for them to also talk a little bit about their statutes, and which is a continuous conversation, but it's also important in this shared governance. So that is everything for me today. Thank my guests one more time. So producer Che, if you could also bring them back up. And again, it's almost as if his first name is producer. Che is his name, Che Munoz. And so Che, thank you again for all your work behind the scenes. Let's put it this way, folks. If he's got to work with me and produce all of this that's going on up in here, God bless him. He deserves a pay raise because I don't know how he does it. But the show always comes out fantastic. So thank you again, producer Che. Again, back to your first name as producer. Thank you again to all my guests. You guys have been fantastic and wonderful. I appreciate your efforts, the work that you do locally on your boards, the work that you do, because your conversations, again, one of the reasons why I brought each of you on is my respect for you is significant, because the work that I see you do when you don't even know I'm aware of it, it's still about the students. It's still about collaboration. It's still about bringing the whole group together. And so I just thought you were the perfect guest to have to talk about shared governance today. So thank you again. Have a fantastic day. And one of my favorite sayings, to lead people, you love people. To save people, you serve people. Thank you for being the kind of folks who love and serve. Everybody, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.